During my 70th birthday dinner, my son handed me a bowl of dog food in front of 50 guests and told me, "This is what freeloaders eat, old man." That night I packed my bags and left. But what I did the next day made him beg and cry. My name is Harrison Caldwell, and I am 70 years old. To the 50 guests sipping expensive champagne in my son's crystal flutes, I looked like a stain on a silk sheet. I sat at the far end of the long mahogany table wearing my faded flannel shirt and work boots, the same ones I wore when I built Caldwell Logistics from a single truck into a national empire. But they did not know that. None of the guests knew who I really was. They only saw a tired old man nursing a glass of tap water because the waiters had been instructed not to waste the vintage wine on me. Before I tell you how I brought my entire family to their knees, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. Hit like and subscribe if you have ever had to stand up to family members who underestimated your worth. The dining room of the Greenwich estate was suffocating. The air smelled of roasting lamb and expensive perfume. The chandelier above us sparkled with a light that felt too harsh for my old eyes. I sat quietly, keeping my hands in my lap, trying to make myself as small as possible. I was used to being ignored in this house. For the last 5 years, I had become a ghost in the lives of my son Derek and his wife Monica. Derek stood up at the head of the table. He was 42 years old, handsome in a way that money can buy, wearing a bespoke Italian suit that cost more than the truck I drove. He tapped his spoon against his wine glass. The sharp ding-ding-ding silenced the room. Conversations died down and 50 faces turned toward him expectantly. "Attention, everyone." Derek announced, his voice smooth as oil, but with that underlying edge of arrogance I had come to despise. He smiled at the guests, flashing his perfect white teeth. "We are here to celebrate a milestone. My father Harrison is 70 years old today." There was a polite ripple of applause. Monica sat to his right, clapping with her fingertips, her eyes scanning the room to make sure everyone was watching. She wore a diamond necklace that caught the light, a necklace I knew she had charged to the company credit card last month. 70 years is a long time. Derek continued, his eyes finally landing on me. They were cold, devoid of any warmth or affection. "It is a long time to be on this earth, and it is a long time to rely on the kindness of others. Isn't it, Dad?" I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. I shifted in my chair, the wood digging into my spine. I did not say anything. I just watched him, wondering where this was going. I had hoped that for one night, just for my birthday, he might show a shred of decency. Derek reached under the table and pulled out a silver serving bowl. It was an antique piece, one that had belonged to my late wife, Sarah. She used to serve her famous potato salad in it during Sunday picnics. Seeing it in his hands made my heart ache. "I have a special gift for you, Dad," Derek said, walking slowly down the length of the table. The guests watched him with curiosity. He stopped right in front of me and placed the silver bowl on the charger plate. "Open it," he said, his voice dropping to a whisper that carried across the silent room. "You must be hungry." For a split second, I let myself believe I was wrong. I let myself hope that maybe inside this bowl was a memento, or a favorite meal, or perhaps just a letter apologizing for the years of neglect. I reached out with a trembling hand and lifted the heavy silver lid. The smell hit me first. It was pungent, meaty, and rancid. My stomach turned. Inside the beautiful silver bowl was a mound of wet, chunky brown mush. It was dog food, the cheap canned kind that we used to feed the guard dogs at the warehouse yards. I stared at it, unable to process the cruelty. My brain refused to accept that my own flesh and blood would do this to me in public. "This is what freeloaders eat, old man," Derek said loudly, his voice booming off the vaulted ceiling. "You have been living in my guest house for 5 years. You eat my food. You use my electricity. You drive that piece of junk truck on my driveway and bring down the property value. You are a pet dad, and pets need to know their place." Monica let out a high, cruel giggle that pierced the silence like a shard of glass. "Oh, look at his face," she said, leaning forward. She did not look embarrassed. She looked entertained. She looked like a child pulling the wings off a fly. The guests were frozen. Some looked down at their plates, their faces red with second-hand shame. Others, the sycophants who wanted to do business with Derek, chuckled nervously, trying to stay on his good side. I looked at the bowl of dog food, and then I looked at my son. In that moment, the last shred of doubt vanished. For 5 years, I had been playing a long game, a dangerous game, but I never thought it would end like this. 5 years ago, I made a choice that changed everything. I was the CEO of Caldwell Logistics. I had money power and influence, but I was tired and I was worried. I saw how Derek spent money he did not earn. I saw how Monica treated the staff like dirt. I wanted to know if my son was a man of character or if he was just a parasite waiting for me to die. So I created a test. I stepped down as CEO, publicly handing him the title. But what he did not know, what nobody in that room knew, was that I never transferred the assets. I created a blind trust. I kept the ownership of the estate, the company, the land, and the accounts securely in my name. Derek was just a manager on a salary with a title. I moved into the drafty guest cottage behind the main house. I told them I wanted to retire simply. I told them I had made some bad investments and my savings were gone. I pretended to be a poor, dependent old man because I wanted to see if they would care for me when I had nothing to offer. I wanted to see if they loved me or my wallet. Tonight, staring at that gelatinous pile of dog food, I got my answer. They did not just fail the test. They failed as human beings. I looked at Derek. He was smirking, waiting for me to cry or to yell or to storm out. He wanted a reaction. He wanted to prove to everyone that I was just a crazy, senile old man who needed to be put away. I took a deep breath, inhaling the scent of the dog food mixed with the roast lamb. I felt a strange calmness wash over me. It was the calm of a general who knows the enemy has just walked into a minefield. I did not scream. I did not flip the table. I slowly stood up. My knees popped loud in the silence. I picked up the silver bowl with both hands, holding it with the dignity of a king holding a crown. "Thank you, son," I said, my voice steady and clear, not shaking even a little bit. It echoed in the large room. I looked him dead in the eye, and I saw his smirk falter just for a second. He expected anger. He did not expect gratitude. "I will never forget this meal," I said. I turned away from him and looked at Monica. She had stopped laughing. Her mouth was slightly open, confusion clouding her eyes. I looked at the guests who were now shifting uncomfortably in their seats, realizing that the joke had gone too far. I turned my back on them all and walked toward the French doors leading to the garden. I walked with my head high, ignoring the whispers that started to break out behind me. "Don't forget to wash the bowl when you are done, old man," Monica called out after me, trying to reclaim the upper hand. I did not stop. I pushed open the doors and stepped into the cool night air, leaving the warmth and the cruelty behind me. As I walked across the manicured lawn toward the small guest house where I lived, I did not feel sad. I felt liberated. For 5 years, I had held on to the hope that my son would change, that he would show me he was worthy of the legacy I had built. But tonight, he had handed me dog food, and in doing so, he had handed me the freedom to do what I had to do. I entered my small cottage and closed the door, locking out the noise of the party. I placed the bowl of dog food on the small wooden table by the window. I stared at it for a long time, letting the image burn into my mind. Then I went to the bedroom. I did not go to the closet to pack my clothes. Instead, I knelt down and reached under the bed. I pulled out an old, battered leather suitcase. It was dusty and looked worthless, just like me. But inside that suitcase was not clothing. Inside was a satellite phone, a corporate seal, and a thick file folder marked Protocol Phoenix. I sat on the edge of the bed and opened the file. My hands were steady. My heart was cold. I looked at the clock on the wall. It was 2 in the morning. The party was over. The lights in the main house were going dark. They were probably sleeping soundly, thinking they had finally put the old man in his place. I picked up the satellite phone and dialed a number I had not called in 5 years. It rang once, then a sharp professional voice answered. "Sarah Jenkins here." Sarah was my chief legal counsel, the only person in the world who knew the truth about the trust. She was loyal, sharp, and she had been waiting for this call. "It is Harrison," I said. There was a pause on the other end. Then her voice softened, but remained alert. "Happy birthday, Harrison. How did it go?" I looked at the bowl of dog food in the other room. "Activate Protocol Phoenix," I said. Sarah did not ask questions. She did not hesitate. She knew exactly what that meant. It meant the test was over. It meant the hammer was about to fall. "Execute Clause 70, I told her. "Freeze everything. Consider it done," Sarah said. "I will have the paperwork ready by sunrise." I hung up the phone. I stood up and walked back to the main room. I took the silver bowl into the kitchenette. I scraped the dog food into the trash and washed the bowl until it shined. I dried it carefully and placed it on my pillow. Then I took a piece of paper and wrote a single-line note. "Thank you for the hospitality. I am going to find food that suits me better." I placed the note next to the bowl. I grabbed my old suitcase, walked out to my rusted pickup truck, and started the engine. I did not look back at the mansion. I did not look back at the life I was leaving behind. I drove into the darkness, knowing that when the sun rose, my son would wake up to a world that no longer belonged to him. I stood in the shadows of the hallway, clutching the handle of my battered suitcase. My heart was still pounding from the humiliation at the dinner table, but now a different kind of adrenaline was pumping through my veins. I had intended to slip away quietly, like a thief in the night, leaving them to their champagne and their cruelty. But as I passed the heavy oak door of the study, a sound stopped me in my tracks. It was the sound of a glass shattering against the wall, followed by a voice I recognized all too well. It was Derek, my son. But he did not sound like the arrogant master of the house who had just mocked me. He sounded like a frightened child, cornered and desperate. "You do not understand, Monica. They are going to kill me." Derek's voice was high-pitched, trembling with a terror I had never heard before. I froze. The floorboards beneath my boots were silent. I leaned closer to the slightly ajar door, holding my breath. "Stop whining, Derek, and tell me exactly how much." Monica's voice was cold, sharp as a razor blade. She was not panicked. She was calculating. $5 million, Derek sobbed. "I put it all into that new crypto exchange, the one Jason told me about. I thought I could double it before the quarter ended. I thought I could pay back the loan sharks and buy the yacht you wanted. But it is gone, Monica. It is all gone. The exchange collapsed this morning. The wallet is empty." I felt a chill run down my spine that had nothing to do with the drafty hallway. $5 million. My son had gambled away a fortune that was not even his to begin with. But it was what he said next that made my blood turn to ice. "I borrowed from the wrong people," Derek continued, his voice dropping to a whisper. "They gave me 48 hours. They said, if I don't pay, they will not just break my legs. They will come for everything. The house, the cars, you." There was a silence in the room, a heavy, suffocating silence. Then I heard the sound of Monica pacing, her heels clicking rhythmically on the hardwood floor. "We are not losing this house," Monica said finally, her voice devoid of empathy for her husband's fear. "We are not losing my lifestyle because you are an idiot. There has to be a way out. Think, Derek, think." "I have tried everything," Derek stammered. "The business accounts are tapped out. Credit is maxed. Dad is the only one with assets left, but he is just a senile old drain on our resources." "No," Monica interrupted him. and her tone shifted into something sinister, something predatory. Wait, you are right. The old man is the answer. What are you talking about? He is broke, Derek said. He lives in the guest house eating our food. He is asset rich and cash poor, you fool, Monica hissed. Listen to me. Do you remember the power of attorney we made him sign last year when he had that pneumonia scare? The one we told him was just for medical emergencies. I listened, my knuckles turning white as I gripped the suitcase handle. I remembered that day. I had been weak, coughing, unable to think clearly. They had brought me papers saying it would help them manage my doctor's appointments. I had signed because I trusted them, because they were family. Yes, I remember, Derek said. But what good does that do? Read the fine print, Derek, monsieur, Monica said. I could hear the smile in her voice. It gives us full control over his assets if he is deemed incapacitated, or if he is placed in a permanent care facility. I leaned closer, my ear almost touching the wood. So, here is the plan, Monica continued. Tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. I have already arranged for a van from the Sunnydale State Nursing Home to pick him up. Sunnydale. The name hit me like a physical blow. It was a warehouse for the dying, a place known for negligence, bed sores, and the smell of urine. It was where people sent relatives they wanted to forget. We put him in Sunnydale tomorrow morning, Monica said. Once he is admitted and processed as a ward of the state, we invoke the power of attorney immediately. We liquidate the guest house. The land it sits on is prime real estate in Greenwich. I had it appraised last week without him knowing. It is worth $3 million alone. And his pension? Derek asked, hope creeping back into his voice. We drain it, Monica said. Every month we take his check. Plus we sell his truck. We sell that collection of antique watches he keeps in the safety deposit box. We sell everything. Between the land and his hidden assets, we can scrape together enough to pay off your sharks. But Dad... Derek hesitated for a fraction of a second. Just a fraction. He will fight it. He cannot fight anything, Monica snapped. He is 70 years old. He has no friends, no influence, and after tonight, everyone thinks he is just a confused old man eating dog food. By the time he realizes what has happened, the land will be sold, and the money will be wired to your creditors. He will rot in Sunnydale, and we will be safe. Do it, Derek said. The hesitation gone, replaced by relief. Do it. Call them. Make sure the van is here at 8 sharp. I want him gone before breakfast. I pulled away from the door, my entire body shaking. This was not just greed. This was not just disrespect. This was a death sentence. They were planning to bury me alive in a state facility and strip the flesh from my bones to pay for their mistakes. They were going to erase my existence to save their own skins. I backed away slowly, stepping carefully, to avoid making a sound. I did not go to the front door. I did not run to my truck. Not yet. I turned and walked back out into the night across the lawn that Monica was planning to sell out from under me. I entered the guest house and locked the door behind me. The air inside was cool and still. I looked at the simple room that had been my home for 5 years, the books on the shelf, the photos of my late wife on the mantel. Everything looked different now. Everything looked like evidence of a life they wanted to extinguish. I walked into the bedroom and knelt down beside the bed. I reached underneath and pulled out the old leather suitcase again. I set it on the duvet and opened it. Inside, nestled next to the satellite phone and the corporate seal, was a thick manila envelope sealed with red wax. I broke the seal and poured the contents onto the bed. Deeds, titles, bank access codes, and the original revocation of power of attorney documents I had prepared 5 years ago just in case. I had hoped I would never have to use them. I had prayed that my son would prove me wrong, that the power of attorney I gave them was a test of their character, not a weapon for my destruction. But I was a man who believed in preparation, not luck. I looked at the clock. It was 2:15 in the morning. In less than 6 hours, a van would arrive to take me away to a nightmare. Not today, I whispered to the empty room. Not ever. I sat on the edge of the bed, the documents spread out around me like a shield. The sadness I had felt earlier was gone, burned away by the heat of their betrayal. My hands, which had built a logistics empire from scratch, were steady now. I picked up the satellite phone from the suitcase. It was heavy, a device meant for war zones and emergencies. This was both. I entered the secure PIN code. The screen lit up, searching for a signal, connecting to a network that Derek and Monica did not even know existed. I looked at the silver bowl of dog food sitting on the nightstand, gleaming in the moonlight. It was no longer an insult. It was a declaration of war. They thought they were dealing with a helpless old man. They thought they could dispose of me like trash. But as the phone connected and began to ring, I knew something they didn't. They weren't sending me to a nursing home. They were waking up a sleeping giant. And when the sun rose tomorrow, they would learn that the old man they tried to bury was actually a seed waiting to grow into their destruction. I sat on the edge of the sagging mattress with the suitcase open across my knees, staring at the contents like a general inspecting his weapons before the final charge. Inside the battered leather case lay the instruments of my resurrection. A satellite phone with a direct encrypted line, a heavy brass corporate seal that had not seen the light of day in 5 years, and a thick bound file labeled Protocol Phoenix. My hands, which had trembled with rage only an hour ago, were now steady as granite. I reached for the file and opened it to the first page. The document was titled, The Harrison Caldwell Revocable Living Trust. The date at the top was exactly 5 years ago, specifically the day before I announced my retirement. For 5 years, my son and his wife believed I had transferred the company and the estate to them. They believed the papers they signed were deeds of ownership and irrevocable transfers of stock. They were wrong. They were so blinded by greed and the prospect of easy wealth that they never bothered to read the fine print of the 300-page contract I had placed in front of them. I ran my finger over the paragraph marked Clause 70. It was a moral conduct provision, a failsafe I had inserted on the advice of Sarah Jenkins, my attorney and oldest friend. The clause was simple but devastating. It stated that the management rights granted to Derek Caldwell were probationary, subject to a review on my 70th birthday. If the beneficiary demonstrated moral turpitude or failed to provide adequate care for the grantor, meaning me, the trust would automatically revoke all privileges and revert full control of every single asset back to the grantor. Derek thought he was the owner. He was nothing more than a glorified property manager. And tonight, by handing me a bowl of dog food and plotting to throw me into a state facility, he had just fired himself. I picked up the satellite phone and dialed the number I had memorized, but never hoped to use. It rang twice before a sharp, alert voice answered. "This is Jenkins." "Sarah," I said, my voice low and rough in the quiet room. "It is time." There was a pause on the line, a silence filled with the weight of 5 years of waiting. I could hear the rustle of sheets as she sat up in bed. "Harrison, is that you?" Sarah asked, her voice shifting from sleep to professional sharpness instantly. "What happened?" "They tried to bury me, Sarah," I said, looking at the damp walls of the guest house that had been my prison. "They planned to send me to Sunnydale Nursing Home at 8 this morning and liquidate the estate using a fraudulent power of attorney. They want to sell the land to pay off Derek's gambling debts." "Sunnydale." Sarah spat the name like a curse. "Over my dead body. Harrison, tell me what you want me to do." "Activate Protocol Phoenix," I said. "Execute Clause 70 immediately. I want the trust locked down. I want every bank account, every credit line, every asset connected to Caldwell Logistics and the estate frozen. I want the deeds to the house and the land transferred back to my personal holding company, effective 1 minute ago." "Understood," Sarah said. "I am logging into the secure server now. I will have the injunctions filed electronically with the court by 3 a.m. The banks will receive the freeze order by 4. When Derek tries to buy his morning coffee, his card will be a piece of useless plastic. And Sarah, I added, make sure the board of directors gets the notification. I want them to know that the chairman has returned from his sabbatical. I want an emergency meeting scheduled for Monday morning. It will be done, Sarah said. Her fingers were already flying across a keyboard. I could hear the rhythmic clicking in the background. Harrison, are you safe? Do you need extraction? I am safe enough, I said. But I am not staying here. I am done being the ghost in the attic. I am taking my life back. I hung up the phone and placed it back in the suitcase. I felt a strange sensation in my chest. It was the feeling of power returning, the feeling of the lion waking up after a long slumber. For too long I had played the part of the feeble old man, allowing them to disrespect me, hoping that my humility would teach them kindness. But you cannot teach kindness to a wolf. You can only show it the whip. I stood up and walked into the small kitchenette. The silver bowl sat on the counter, the remnants of the dog food still clinging to the sides. The smell was foul, a reminder of the humiliation they had tried to inflict upon me. I turned on the tap, the water running cold and clear. I did not throw the bowl away. I picked up a sponge and the dish soap, and I began to scrub. I washed away the filth. I washed away the disrespect. I washed away the 5 years of silence and endurance. I scrubbed until the silver shone under the dim kitchen light, reflecting my own face back at me. It was the face of Harrison Caldwell, the man who had built an empire from dirt and sweat, not the face of a victim. I dried the bowl carefully with a clean towel and walked back to the bedroom. I placed the shining silver bowl on the center of the pillow, where I had laid my head for 5 years. It looked like an offering, a dark joke that only I understood. I took a piece of stationery from the nightstand and a heavy fountain pen. I wrote a single sentence, my handwriting sharp and angular. Thank you for the hospitality. I am going to find food that suits me better. I placed the note next to the bowl. I did not look back at the room. I did not feel a shred of nostalgia for this place that had been my home. It was just a building, a structure of wood and stone that my son was ready to sell for a quick payout. I grabbed the handle of the old suitcase and walked out the door into the cool night air. The estate was silent, the main house looming dark and massive against the sky. Derek and Monica were in there sleeping in their $4,000 sheets, dreaming of the millions they thought they would harvest from my corpse. I walked past the garage where Derek kept his luxury sedans and Monica kept her Italian sports car. I did not touch them. They were leased, purchased with company money that was about to dry up. Instead, I walked to the old barn at the edge of the property. Inside, under a canvas tarp, sat my old 1985 Ford pickup truck. It was rusted around the wheel wells and the paint was faded to a dull primer gray, but the engine was solid. I had maintained it myself, sneaking out here on Sunday afternoons to tinker with the only thing I truly owned. I pulled the tarp off, revealing the truck. It looked like me, battered, worn out, but built to survive. I threw the suitcase onto the passenger seat and climbed in behind the wheel. The cab smelled of old oil and leather, a smell that reminded me of hard work and honest money. I turned the key. The engine coughed once, then roared to life with a deep, throaty rumble that shattered the silence of the night. Lights flickered on in the main house. A bedroom window opened. Monica's voice drifted out, shrill and confused, asking what that noise was. I did not wait to explain. I shifted the truck into gear and slammed my foot on the gas. The tires spun on the gravel, kicking up dust and stones. I drove down the long driveway, my headlights cutting through the darkness like the eyes of a predator. As I passed the main gate, I reached into my pocket and pressed the button on the remote control, closing the heavy iron gates behind me, locking them in their gilded cage. I turned onto the main road, heading toward the city, toward the Ritz-Carlton, toward Sarah Jenkins, and toward the war that was about to begin. I was 70 years old. I had no home. I had no family. But as the wind hit my face through the open window, I smiled for the first time in years. I was Harrison Caldwell, and I was coming for everything. The sun rose over Greenwich at exactly 6:22 in the morning, casting a deceptively beautiful golden light over the estate that my son believed he owned. But while the birds sang and the dew settled on the manicured lawns, the gears of a machine he could not see were already grinding his future into dust. I was miles away, sitting in a high-back leather chair in the presidential suite of the Ritz-Carlton, watching the security feed on a laptop screen. Sarah sat across from me sipping coffee, her eyes scanning the flow of data as my assets locked down one by one. At exactly 8 o'clock, a white van with the logo Sunnydale Extended Care Facility rolled through the open gates, followed closely by a sleek silver Mercedes driven by Marcus Sterling, the most aggressive real estate broker in Connecticut. Derek stepped out of the main house wearing a polo shirt and expensive loafers, looking like a man without a care in the world. He checked his watch, his face set in a mask of impatient authority. I watched on the screen as he gestured to the two large orderlies from the nursing home, pointing them toward the guest house like they were animal control officers here to collect a stray dog. He did not look sad. He did not look conflicted. He looked like a man taking out the trash. "Come on, let us get this over with," Derek barked at them. "He is old and likely confused. Just grab him and put him in the van. Do not let him make a scene. The neighbors are watching." The group marched across the lawn, the grass crunching under their feet. Marcus, the broker, followed a few steps behind, clutching his iPad, already calculating his commission on a property he thought was about to hit the market. Derek reached the door of the guest house and did not bother to knock. He fished a spare key from his pocket and jammed it into the lock, twisting it with a violent jerk. I leaned closer to the screen, watching the realization hit him in real time. The door swung open, revealing the small living space. It was completely empty. The bed was stripped. The closet doors were open and bare. The books were gone. The photos were gone. There was no sign that anyone had lived there for the past 5 years, except for one object sitting squarely in the center of the unmade mattress. Derek stormed into the room, his eyes scanning the corners, expecting to find me cowering in fear or sleeping in ignorance. But there was only silence. He walked to the bed and stared down at the pillow. Sitting there, gleaming in the morning sunlight, was the silver serving bowl he had handed me the night before. It had been scrubbed clean, polished to a mirror finish. Beside it lay the note I had written, my handwriting bold and unapologetic. Derek picked up the paper and read it out loud, his voice trembling with a mixture of rage and confusion. "I am going to find food that suits me better." He crumpled the note in his fist and threw it across the room. He kicked the bed frame, his face turning a deep shade of crimson. "Where is he?" Derek shouted, spinning around to face the nursing home staff. "Check the bathroom. Check the shed." "He cannot have gone far. He has no car and no money." The orderlies looked at each other, then shrugged. One of them peered into the tiny bathroom. "It is empty, Mr. Caldwell. Nobody is here." "Get out!" Derek screamed at them. "Just get out of here! Go find him! Drive around the neighborhood! He is probably wandering down the road, drooling on himself. Just go!" The nursing home staff did not need to be told twice. They turned and retreated to their van, clearly uninterested in dealing with a man who looked ready to explode. Derek was left alone in the room with Marcus, the broker, who was standing awkwardly by the door, tapping on his iPad. "Mr. Caldwell?" Marcus cleared his throat. "I understand this is a stressful morning, but my schedule is tight. If we want to list the land today, we need to verify the property lines and get the listing agreement signed." Derek ran a hand through his hair, trying to compose himself. He took a deep breath, forcing the mask of the successful CEO back into place. "Right," Derek said, his voice tight. "Yes, let us focus on the money. The old man is gone. Good riddance. It makes things easier. List it. I want it sold by the end of the week. Price it to move Marcus. I need the cash liquid immediately." Marcus nodded, tapping away on his screen, pulling up the county clerk's database via the high-speed cellular connection. Very well. Let me just pull up the current deed to confirm the parcel numbers, and we can get the digital signatures. I watched on the monitor as Marcus's brow furrowed. He stopped tapping. He frowned, swiping the screen down to refresh the page. He tapped again, harder this time, as if the device was malfunctioning. Is there a problem? Derek asked, snapping his fingers. Let us go, Marcus. Time is money. There is something wrong with the registry, Marcus said slowly, walking further into the room to get a better signal. It says here that the owner of this parcel is not you, and it is not Harrison Caldwell. What are you talking about? Derek laughed, a nervous, dry sound. Of course it is Harrison Caldwell, and I have his power of attorney right here in my pocket. He patted his chest. Just print the damn form. Mr. Caldwell. Marcus looked up from the iPad, his face pale under his tan. Please look at this. The title transfer was recorded at 4:01 this morning. The deed has been moved. Moved where? Derek snatched the iPad from the broker's hands, staring at the screen with wide disbelief. It says the owner of record is the Veterans Charity Fund of America. Marcus said, his voice quiet. That is impossible, Derek yelled, spittle flying from his lips. That is fraud. The old man is senile. He cannot transfer property. He does not even know how to use a computer. This is a glitch. Fix it. It is not a glitch, sir, Marcus said, taking a step back. The transfer is notarized and recorded with the county. The transaction is complete. You do not own this land, Mr. Caldwell. And according to this, neither does your father anymore. It belongs to a charity trust. You cannot sell it. You cannot build on it. You cannot even be on it without their permission. Technically, we are trespassing right now. Derek looked at the iPad, then at the empty room, then out the window at the land he thought was his salvation. His knees seemed to give out, and he sat heavily on the mattress right next to the silver bowl. He did this, Derek whispered, the realization finally piercing through his arrogance. He did this to spite me. Suddenly, the silence of the morning was shattered by the shrill ringtone of Derek's cell phone. It echoed in the empty cottage, loud and demanding. Derek ignored it, staring at the wall. The phone stopped ringing, then started again immediately. Answer it, I whispered to the screen in my hotel room. Answer the phone, son. The show is just starting. Derek pulled the phone from his pocket and looked at the caller ID. It was Monica. He swiped the screen and put it to his ear. What is it, Monica? He snapped. I am in the middle of a disaster here. The broker says the land is gone. Derek? Monica's voice screamed through the speaker so loud that Marcus the broker could hear it from the doorway. She sounded hysterical, her voice cracking with panic. Derek, where is the money? What are you talking about? Derek asked, standing up. I am at the Solstice Spa, Monica shrieked. I just had a $300 facial and a massage. I went to pay, and they declined the card, Derek. They declined the black card. Try the other one, Derek said, sweat beading on his forehead. Try the platinum. I did, Monica yelled. I tried the platinum. I tried the gold. I tried the corporate expense card. They are all declined, Derek, every single one of them. And it is not just declined. The manager came out. She is standing right here in front of everyone. She has a pair of scissors, Derek. What? Derek said, his face losing all color. She says there is a flag on the account. She says the cards are reported as stolen or compromised by the primary account holder. She is cutting them up, Derek. She is cutting up my cards in front of the entire lobby. People are looking at me. Everyone is looking at me. Fix this. Fix this right now, or I swear to God. The line went dead. Or maybe Monica threw the phone. Derek stood there, the phone still pressed to his ear, the dial tone humming in the silence. Marcus the broker cleared his throat, adjusting his tie nervously. Mr. Caldwell, I think I should go. If you do not own the property, there is really nothing I can do here. And frankly, this looks like a legal matter I do not want to be involved in." Marcus turned and walked out, leaving Derek alone in the empty guest house. My son looked around the room, his eyes wild and fearful. He looked at the silver bowl on the bed shining in the light. He looked at the empty closet. He looked at his phone, which was silent now, a black mirror reflecting his terrified face. Back in the hotel suite, I leaned back in my chair and took a sip of my coffee. The bitterness was gone, replaced by the sweet taste of justice. Sarah looked up from her laptop, a small smile playing on her lips. "Phase 1 is complete, Harrison," she said. "The land is secure. The accounts are frozen. And the credit lines are terminated. Monica has been escorted out of the spa by security." "Good," I said, watching my son stumble out of the guest house into the bright sunlight of a day that promised him nothing but ruin. Let him run. Let him panic. Let them feel exactly what it is like to have the rug pulled out from under them. Derek was running across the lawn now, heading for his car, punching numbers into his phone, trying to call the bank, trying to call his lawyer, trying to call anyone who could stop the bleeding. But there was no one. The only person who could save him was the man he had fed dog food to. And that man was gone. The security feed on my laptop shifted to the sleek glass lobby of Caldwell Logistics headquarters. It was 9 in the morning, and the morning rush was in full swing. Employees were streaming through the turnstiles, coffee cups in hand, unaware that the tectonic plates of the company were shifting beneath their feet. Then Derek's car screeched into the frame. He parked illegally in the handicap spot right in front of the glass doors, abandoning his vehicle with the driver's side door still slightly ajar. He stormed toward the entrance, his face a mask of fury and panic. He looked disheveled. His expensive polo shirt was stained with sweat, and his hair was a mess from running his hands through it repeatedly. He looked like a man who was being chased by demons, which, considering the loan sharks he owed money to, was not far from the truth. He marched up to the private executive elevator, the one that led directly to the penthouse office suite. It was the elevator I had installed for clients and board members, but Derek used it exclusively to avoid mingling with the staff he considered beneath him. He pulled his gold-plated keycard from his wallet and slapped it against the reader. Nothing happened. A small red light blinked once, mocking him. Derek swiped it again, harder this time. The red light blinked again. Access denied. I leaned back in my chair at the Ritz-Carlton, taking a slow sip of my coffee. Sarah sat beside me, typing commands into her secure terminal. "He is trying the executive lift." Sarah noted her voice devoid of sympathy. "I deactivated his credentials 4 minutes ago." On the screen, Derek was losing his mind. He slammed his hand against the elevator doors. He turned to the security guard, a young man named Kevin, who Derek had threatened to fire at least a dozen times for minor infractions. Derek screamed something at him, pointing at the card reader. Kevin checked his monitor, shrugged, and shook his head. I could almost hear him saying that there was nothing he could do. Derek looked at the turnstiles where the regular employees were passing through. He tried to swipe his card there. Red light. Access denied. He was locked out of his own kingdom. Desperation took over. Derek jumped over the turnstile, nearly tripping in his haste. He ignored the shouts of the security team and ran toward the fire exit. The elevators were locked down, which meant he had only one option. The stairs. The executive suite was on the 25th floor. Derek Caldwell had not exercised in 10 years. He spent his days sitting in leather chairs and eating rich lunches on the company expense account. This climb was going to be the workout of his life. 20 minutes later, the camera feed inside the 25th floor lobby picked him up. The heavy fire door burst open and Derek stumbled out. He was gasping for air, his face purple sweat pouring down his neck. He leaned against the wall, clutching his chest, looking like he might have a heart attack right there on the plush carpet. Employees stopped what they were doing. Secretaries looked up from their desks. Junior analysts paused in the hallway. They watched their CEO wheezing and dripping sweat, looking like a madman. Derek pushed himself off the wall and staggered toward his office. He shoved past his executive assistant, a woman named Linda, who had been with the company since I started it in a garage. "Get me water," Derek rasped at her, not even looking her in the eye. "And get it on the phone. My keycard is broken." Linda did not move. She sat perfectly still behind her desk, her hands folded on top of a stack of files. She looked at him with a calmness that was terrifying. "I cannot do that, Mr. Caldwell," Linda said. Derek stopped. He turned slowly to face her. "What did you say to me? I do not work for you anymore," Linda replied. Derek stared at her, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. He did not have the breath to scream. He turned and slammed his hand against the door of his office. It was locked. He fumbled for his keys, but before he could insert them, the door opened from the inside. A man stepped out. It was Arthur Banks, the chief financial officer of Caldwell Logistics. Arthur was a man of numbers, cold and precise. He had always disliked Derek's reckless spending, but he had feared for his job. Today, however, Arthur stood tall. He was holding a tablet in his hand, and two large security guards stood behind him inside the office. "What are you doing in my office?" Derek demanded, his voice cracking. "Get out. Get out right now, Mr. Caldwell." Arthur said, his tone icy. "Please step away from the door. You are trespassing." "Trespassing?" Derek laughed, a high, hysterical sound. "I am the CEO of this company. I own this building. I own you. Now get out of my way before I have you thrown onto the street." "You are not the CEO," Arthur stated simply. "You were the acting interim manager. And as of 2 o'clock this morning, your probationary period has been terminated." "Terminated?" Derek stepped forward, fists clenched. "Who terminated me?" "My father. He is a senile old man. He does not even know what day it is. He cannot terminate anyone." "I have power of attorney." "Your power of attorney was revoked years ago," Arthur said, glancing at his tablet. "And the order came from the chairman of the trust, the silent chairman." Derek froze. He had heard rumors of the silent chairman, a legal entity that technically held the controlling shares, but he always assumed it was just a shell company I had set up for tax purposes. He never realized that the silent chairman was me, watching his every move, waiting for him to fail. "The chairman has initiated a surprise audit," Arthur continued. "Every account connected to your name has been frozen. The company credit cards have been canceled. Your access to the building has been revoked. We are currently reviewing 5 years of expenses. And on Mr. Caldwell, based on what we have found in the last hour alone regarding the crypto transfers, I would suggest you find a very good lawyer." Derek went pale. The mention of the crypto transfers hit him harder than the climb up the stairs. That was embezzlement. That was prison time. "This is a mistake," Derek whispered. "It is a glitch. My dad. He is confused. He is having an episode. I need to talk to him." "Where is he?" "We do not know." Arthur lied smoothly. "But he is not here. And you need to leave. Now." Security stepped forward. Derek looked at them, then at Arthur, then at the silent, staring employees. He realized he had lost the room. He realized he had lost the company. He turned and ran. He did not take the elevator. He ran back to the stairwell and disappeared. I watched him go, feeling a mix of satisfaction and pity. He still did not understand. He thought this was a game. He thought he could fix it. Back in his car, Derek's phone rang. It was Monica. I tapped into the audio feed from his car's Bluetooth system, a feature I had insisted on installing in all company vehicles for safety monitoring. Monica's voice was shrill panic vibrating through the speakers. "They took the car. I am standing on the sidewalk outside the spa, and the repo men just took the Mercedes. They said the lease was terminated." "Shut up, Monica!" Derek screamed, hitting the steering wheel. "Shut up and listen to me. It is the old man. He is doing this, what Monica asked. How he is eating dog food. Derek, he is a vegetable. He is playing us, Derek yelled. He has been playing us the whole time. The lawyer. The trust. He locked me out, Monica. He froze the accounts. He knows about the $5 million. He knows about the loan sharks. Monica was silent for a moment. Then her voice changed. The panic vanished, replaced by a cold, deadly resolve. He cannot do this to us, Monica said. We have rights. We have possession. We have nothing, Derek shouted. If I do not get that money by tomorrow, those men are going to break my legs. And if the cops find out about the embezzlement, I am going to jail for 20 years. We are cornered, Monica. Where is he? Monica asked. I do not know, Derek said. He cleared out the guest house. He is gone. Find him, Monica ordered. How? Derek asked. Hire someone, Monica said. Not a lawyer. A professional. Someone who finds people who do not want to be found. We do not have money for a private investigator, Derek said. Use the diamonds, Monica said. I hid the earrings in my purse before they kicked me out. They are worth 10 grand. Pawn them. Hire the guy your friend Jason uses, the one who fixed his problem with the union rep. You mean the muscle? Derek asked, his voice dropping. I mean whoever it takes. Monica hissed. Listen to me, Derek. This is not about money anymore. This is about survival. We find the old man. We grab him. We take him somewhere quiet. And we make him sign the papers. We make him undo the freeze. You want to kidnap him? Derek asked. I want my life back, Monica screamed. He is just a confused old man, Derek. If we get him alone, if we scare him enough, he will sign anything. He is weak. He has always been weak. We find him, we force him to sign, and then we dump him back at the nursing home where nobody will believe a word he says. Derek was silent. I watched him on the camera as he sat in the parking lot, his chest heaving. He looked at his hands. He looked at the building he had just been thrown out of. He was desperate. And desperate men do terrible things. Okay, Derek said softly. I will call Jason. I will find him. Do not just find him, Derek, Monica said. Bring him to me. I want to look him in the eye when he signs everything back over to us. Derek hung up the phone. I watched as he started the car and drove out of the lot, driving fast and reckless. In the hotel room, Sarah looked at me. Her face was pale. She had heard every word. Harrison, Sarah said. They are talking about kidnapping. They are talking about violence. We need to call the police. We need to have them arrested right now. No, I said. Harrison, this is dangerous, Sarah insisted. They are desperate. I know, I said, staring at the screen where my son's car was disappearing into the city traffic. But if we arrest them now, they will claim it was just talk. They will claim emotional distress. They will get a good lawyer and plead it down to a misdemeanor. They will be back on the street in a month, and they will still come for me. So what do we do? Sarah asked. We let them find me, I said. You cannot be serious, Sarah said. I am deadly serious, I said. They think I am weak. They think I am a confused old man who will break under pressure. They have no idea who they are dealing with. Let them hire their thug. Let them come for me. I want them to make their move. I want them to commit the crime in front of witnesses. I want there to be no doubt, no plea deals, no way out. But where Sarah asked, where can we possibly control the situation if they try to grab you? I smiled, but there was no humor in it. It was a cold, hard smile. Dinner, I said. I am hungry, and I know exactly where I want to eat. I picked up the phone and dialed the concierge. Get me a table at Le Jardin, I said. Front and center. And make sure everyone knows Harrison Caldwell is dining out tonight. I hung up and looked at Sarah. They want to make a scene, I said. Let us give them a show they will never forget. The air in the presidential suite of the Ritz-Carlton smelled of sandalwood and old money. It was a stark contrast to the scent of mildew and desperation that had clung to the guest house for 5 years. I stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling mirror, adjusting the cuffs of my bespoke Brioni suit. The fabric was a midnight blue Italian wool that felt like water against my skin. It had been 5 years since I had worn anything other than flannel and denim. 5 years since I had allowed myself to look like the man who built an empire. A private barber had just left the room, taking with him the gray stubble and the unkempt hair of the senile old man I had pretended to be. My face was smooth now, my jawline sharp. The silver hair was trimmed tight and precise. I looked at my reflection, and for the first time in a long time I recognized myself. Harrison Caldwell was back. The eyes staring back at me were not the eyes of a victim. They were the eyes of a predator who had finished hibernating. There was a knock at the heavy double doors. I did not move. "Enter," I said. My voice filled the room, authoritative and calm. Sarah Jenkins walked in. She stopped in the center of the foyer, her briefcase in hand. She looked at me and a slow smile spread across her face. She had been my attorney for 30 years. She had seen me at my best and at my worst, but she had never seen me like this. "You look like you are ready to buy a country, Harrison," Sarah said, walking over to the marble dining table where a waiter was just finishing setting down a silver tray. "I am not buying a country," I said, walking over to the table. "I am just taking back my own kingdom." "What is the status, Sarah?" Sarah opened her briefcase and laid out a series of glossy photographs and financial reports. "It is chaos out there," Sarah said. "Derek and Monica are running in circles. We have confirmed that they hired a private investigator about an hour ago, a bottom feeder named Jason Miller. He specializes in intimidation and finding people who do not want to be found. He is currently pinging your old cell phone, but since you left it in the guest house, he is chasing a ghost." "Let him chase," I said, sitting down at the head of the table. "They are panicked, Harrison," Sarah continued. "Monica tried to sell her jewelry at a pawn shop in downtown Greenwich, but we had already flagged the items as insurance liabilities pending an audit. The broker refused to take them. She made a scene. There is video of her screaming at the pawnbroker. It is already on social media." "Good," I said. "Let the world see who they really are when the credit limit runs out." The waiter lifted the silver dome from the plate in front of me. The steam rose up, carrying the rich, earthy scent of a Japanese Wagyu steak seared to perfection. Beside it sat a glass of Chateau Margaux, 1996. The bottle alone cost more than the truck Derek had forced me to drive. I picked up my knife and fork. The silverware was heavy balanced. I cut into the meat. It parted like butter. I took a bite. The flavor was intense, rich, and decadent. I closed my eyes for a moment, letting the taste wash over me. 24 hours ago, my son handed me a bowl of dog food. I said, opening my eyes and looking at Sarah. He told me that was what freeloaders deserved. He watched me hold that bowl, and he smiled. He will never smile again, Sarah said quietly. I took a sip of the wine. It tasted of black currants and oak. It tasted of victory. "I do not want them chasing ghosts anymore, Sarah," I said, setting the glass down. "I do not want them running around town hiring thugs to kick down doors in empty motels. It is sloppy, and it is boring." Sarah looked at me, her brow furrowing slightly. "What are you saying, Harrison?" "I am saying that I am tired of hiding," I said. "I spent 5 years hiding in plain sight in that guest house. I spent 5 years making myself small so they would feel big. I am done shrinking. If they want to find me, let them find me." "Harrison," Sarah warned, "the man they hired is dangerous. If they find you before we get the restraining orders finalized, things could get physical. Derek is desperate. He owes money to people who break bones for a living. If he thinks he can force you to sign that power of attorney back over to him, he will try. I know, I said, cutting another piece of steak. That is exactly what I am counting on. I reached into the inside pocket of my suit jacket and pulled out a brand new smartphone. It was the latest model, sleek and black. I had bought it an hour ago. I unlocked the screen and opened a social media app. It was an account I had created years ago to monitor the company's public relations, but I had never used it personally. Until now. What are you doing? Sarah asked, standing up. I am sending an invitation, I said. I navigated to the search bar and typed in the name of the restaurant. Le Jardin. It was the most exclusive restaurant in the city, the kind of place where Derek and Monica went to be seen, the kind of place they could no longer afford. I tapped the location tag. I took a photo of my view from the balcony of the suite, the city lights twinkling below me like diamonds on black velvet. Then I added a caption. Celebrating freedom. Dinner at Le Jardin tonight at 8 o'clock. The best table in the house. I hit post. Harrison, Sarah said, her voice rising an octave. You just broadcast your location to the entire city. Derek follows that account. Monica follows that account. They will get a notification instantly. I know, I said, slipping the phone back into my pocket. They will come for you, Sarah said. They will bring that thug. They will cause a scene. I certainly hope so, I said, taking another sip of wine. You are using yourself as bait, Sarah said, realizing the plan. You want them to attack you. I want them to show the world who they are, I said. In the privacy of the guest house, they could treat me like an animal and get away with it because there were no witnesses. But tonight, I am taking the stage. If Derek wants to threaten me, if he wants to put his hands on me, he is going to have to do it in front of the elite of Greenwich. He is going to have to do it in front of cameras and witnesses. And what if he does? Sarah asked. What if he hurts you? I looked at my hands. They were old hands, wrinkled and spotted with age, but they were strong. They had built skyscrapers and shipping lanes. He is welcome to try, I said. But I think he will find that the old man is not as fragile as he remembers. I stood up from the table, leaving the steak half finished. The hunger in my stomach had been replaced by a different kind of hunger. A hunger for resolution. Call the police chief, Sarah, I said, buttoning my jacket. Tell him I might need a favor. Tell him his old friend Harrison is going out for dinner and he expects the entertainment to be lively. Sarah sighed, but she was smiling. She pulled out her phone. You are a stubborn old man, Harrison Caldwell. I walked to the door, my reflection catching in the mirror one last time. I adjusted my tie. I am not old, Sarah, I said, opening the door to the hallway. I am timeless, and tonight school is in session. We walked out of the suite and headed for the elevator. The gold doors opened and we stepped inside. I pressed the button for the lobby. As we descended, I checked my watch. It was 7:30. Derek and Monica would be seeing the post right about now. They would be screaming at each other, piling into whatever car they had managed to rent or borrow and racing toward the restaurant. They would think they had caught me. They would think I had made a mistake, a slip of the finger from a confused senior citizen. They would think they were the hunters closing in on the wounded prey. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime. I stepped out into the lobby, the heels of my Italian shoes clicking sharply on the marble floor. Let them come, I thought. Let them bring their anger and their greed and their hired muscle. I have a table waiting, and tonight the main course is going to be the truth. The maitre d' at Le Jardin greeted me like royalty, leading me to a central table bathed in soft, warm light. The restaurant was full, a sea of diamonds, tuxedos, and polite conversation. I sat down facing the entrance, Sarah to my right. I ordered a bottle of sparkling water and waited. It didn't take long. At 8:15, the heavy glass doors of the restaurant burst open. Derek and Monica stormed in, flanked by a man who looked like he chewed rocks for breakfast. Jason Miller, the private investigator and thug. Derek looked frantic, his eyes scanning the room wildly until they landed on me. "There he is," Derek shouted, pointing a shaking finger. The restaurant fell silent. 50 heads turned. Derek marched toward my table, Monica clicking behind him in borrowed heels, Jason lumbering in their wake. They stopped right in front of me, breathing hard. Derek's face was flushed, his eyes wide with a manic energy. "Dad!" Derek yelled, his voice cracking. "What are you doing here? You escaped the nursing home." I didn't answer. I just took a slow sip of water, watching him over the rim of my glass. "Oh my God, look at him!" Monica chimed in, her voice shrill and loud enough for the back row to hear. "He is having an episode, Derek. He thinks he is rich again. He stole my credit card. That is how he is paying for this," the diners whispered. I could hear snippets of conversation. "Is that Harrison Caldwell? Poor man's senile dementia is terrible. His son looks so worried." Derek played into it perfectly. He leaned over the table, putting on a show of concern. "Dad, please. You are confused. You need to come home. The doctors are waiting for you at Sunnydale. You need your medication." "I do not need medication, Derek," I said, my voice calm and carrying clearly through the silent room. "And I certainly do not need Sunnydale." "Stop it!" Derek hissed, his face contorting. "Stop embarrassing us. Get up now." He reached out to grab my arm. I didn't flinch. "Don't touch me," I said. "I am your son." Derek screamed, the mask of concern slipping, revealing the rage underneath. "I am trying to help you. You are spending my money. This is my money. You are wasting on steak and wine while I am trying to save the family business." "Your money?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. "Yesterday you told me I was a freeloader. Yesterday you fed me dog food. Today, suddenly I have access to your fortune." "Shut up!" Derek roared. He grabbed the edge of the table, his knuckles white. "You are coming with me right now, or I swear to God I will drag you out of here." He heaved, trying to flip the heavy marble table. The glasses rattled, the water spilled. Women gasped. I didn't move. I simply raised my right hand and snapped my fingers once. A sharp, crisp sound. Instantly, 2 men who had been sitting at the adjacent table enjoying their coffee stood up. They were massive, wearing plain suits that could not hide the bulk of their muscles. They moved with a speed that defied their size. One of them grabbed Derek's wrist, twisting it behind his back with a practiced motion. Derek yelped in pain, his face slamming onto the table he had just tried to flip. The other guard stepped in front of Jason Miller, blocking his path. Jason looked at the guard, assessed the situation, and took a step back, raising his hands. He was a paid thug, not a martyr. "Let go of him!" Monica shrieked, swinging her purse at the guard holding Derek. "You are hurting him. He is the CEO. Do you know who we are?" "I know exactly who you are," I said, standing up slowly. I adjusted my jacket and looked down at my son pinned to the table like a butterfly specimen. I turned to the room. The diners were watching, captivated. "Ladies and gentlemen," I announced, my voice steady, "I apologize for the disturbance. This man on the table is my son, Derek Caldwell. Yesterday, for my 70th birthday, he served me a bowl of dog food in front of his friends. He called me a freeloader. He planned to commit me to a state nursing home this morning so he could sell my house to pay off his gambling debts." A collective gasp went through the room. Derek struggled against the guard's grip. "He is lying. He is crazy. He is senile." "I am not senile, Derek," I said, looking him in the eye. "And I am not broke. I never was. I was testing you, and you failed." You, Derek sputtered, spit flying from his mouth. "You set me up. I gave you 5 years to be a man," I said. "You chose to be a parasite." Just then, the restaurant doors opened again. A tall man in a police uniform walked in, his badge gleaming under the lights. It was Chief of Police Michael O'Connor, a man I had played poker with every Thursday night for 20 years. "Everything okay here, Harrison?" Michael asked, walking toward the table, his hand resting casually on his belt. Just a little family dispute, Mike, I said. My son seems to have forgotten his manners. And the law. Michael looked down at Derek. Derek Caldwell, he said. You are causing a scene in a public establishment. You are threatening a senior citizen. And based on the report I just got from your father's attorney, you are also a person of interest in a significant embezzlement investigation. Embezzlement? Monica gasped, stepping back. What? That is not true. Cuff him, Michael said to the officers behind him. The guard released Derek, and the police officers immediately grabbed him, pulling his arms back and snapping the handcuffs shut. The sound of the metal ratcheting tight was the sweetest music I had heard in years. You can't do this, Derek screamed as they hauled him up. Dad, tell them, it is a mistake. I am your son. You lost the right to call me that when you served me Alpo on a silver platter, I said coldly. The officers dragged Derek toward the door. He was crying now, begging, pleading, a snot-nosed child, realizing the game was over. Monica stood frozen, looking from her husband to me. Her face was a mask of terror. She realized she was alone. Harrison, she whispered, her voice trembling. Please, I didn't. He made me. Save it, Monica, I said. You are not going to jail tonight, but you are not staying here. I looked at the maitre d'. This woman is bothering me. Please escort her out. Certainly, Monsieur Caldwell, the maitre d' said, stepping forward. Madam, if you please. But my car, Monica stammered. I don't have a car. They took it. Walk, I said. It is a nice night. Maybe the fresh air will help you think about your life choices. Monica looked around the room. She saw the judgment in the eyes of her peers, the people she had tried so hard to impress. She saw the sneers, the whispers. Her social standing was evaporating in real time. She burst into tears and ran out the door, chasing after the police car that was taking her husband away. The restaurant was silent again. I looked around. Please, I said to the room, enjoy your dinner. The entertainment is over. I sat back down. Sarah looked at me, her eyes wide. You really did it, she said. I told you, I said, picking up my menu. I am hungry. Now let us order dessert. I think I earned it. Outside, the sirens wailed, fading into the distance. But inside, everything was calm. The predator had eaten. The prey was gone. And Harrison Caldwell was just getting started. Derek spent the night on a cold metal bench in a holding cell that smelled of stale sweat and regret. He was still wearing his tuxedo from the night before, but the bow tie was undone, the shirt was wrinkled, and the expensive fabric was stained with the grime of the precinct floor. He had spent 12 hours crying, yelling for a lawyer, and demanding to see the manager, as if the county jail were a hotel with poor customer service. But nobody listened. For the first time in his life, Derek Caldwell was just another number in the system. I arrived at the station at 7 in the morning. I did not go inside to comfort him. I did not go inside to offer a shoulder to cry on. I walked up to the desk sergeant, a man who looked like he had seen everything and was impressed by nothing. I pulled out a thick envelope of cash. $5,000. It was the bail amount set by the night judge. I paid it. I signed the paperwork, and then I walked back to my waiting car. I did not wait for him to come out. I did not want to hear his excuses. I needed him free, not because I forgave him, but because the next part of my plan required his presence. You cannot fire a man who is sitting in a jail cell. You cannot publicly destroy a reputation that is hidden behind bars. For the final act of this play, Derek needed to be on stage. 20 minutes later, Derek walked out into the morning light. He shielded his eyes, looking around for a limousine for a driver for me. He saw no one. He had to use the precinct phone to call Monica, who picked him up in a taxi because her car had been repossessed and mine was gone. I had bugged the taxi. Well, technically, I had hired the taxi service through a subsidiary of Caldwell Logistics, and the driver was one of my most loyal employees, a man named Sam, who had driven trucks for me for 20 years before retiring. The audio feed came through crystal clear in my hotel suite. "He bailed me out," Derek said, his voice raspy but gaining strength. "I knew it. I knew he would crack." "Of course he did," Monica replied, her voice thick with relief and renewed arrogance. "He is scared, Derek. He realized he went too far last night. The scene at the restaurant, the police. He knows he messed up. He is terrified of losing us." "He is just an old man having a tantrum," Derek said, smoothing out his wrinkled jacket. "He tried to flex his muscles, but he realized he cannot run the company without me. He doesn't know the modern market. He doesn't know about crypto or the new shipping lanes. He needs me." "Exactly," Monica said. "He probably woke up this morning, realized he was alone in a hotel room, and panicked. That is why he paid the bail. It is an olive branch." I shook my head, listening to their delusion. It was fascinating how the human mind could twist reality to protect the ego. They had just been humiliated, arrested, and stripped of their assets, yet they were already rewriting the story to make themselves the winners. "So what do we do?" Derek asked. "We play it cool," Monica said. "We go home, we shower, we get changed. We let him come to us. We make him apologize. And this time, Derek, we make him sign over the trust irrevocably. No more probationary periods. We take it all." "You are right," Derek said. "We take it all." Just then, Derek's phone pinged. It was an email notification. He checked it. "It is from the board of directors," Derek said, reading the screen. "Emergency meeting, Monday morning, 9 a.m., subject leadership transition." "See?" Monica laughed, a triumphant, ugly sound. "Leadership transition. He is stepping down. He is going to reinstate you publicly. He wants to do it in front of the board to save face. He wants to hand the keys back to you officially." "Monday morning," Derek said, a smile creeping into his voice. "I will be the CEO again, and the first thing I am going to do is fire that traitor Arthur Banks and that secretary Linda. I am going to fire everyone who looked at me sideways yesterday." "We won, baby," Monica said. "We survived the storm. Now we just need to get ready." "Driver," Derek said, tapping the plexiglass divider. "Take us home. To the Caldwell estate on Highland Avenue." "You got it," Sam said from the front seat, hiding his smirk. I turned off the audio feed. They were heading into the trap. They believed they were returning to their sanctuary, to the fortress of wealth that shielded them from the consequences of their actions. They did not know that I had been busy while Derek was sleeping on a concrete floor. An hour later, the taxi pulled up to the massive iron gates of the estate. But the gates did not open. The keypad code had been changed. The remote clicker in the taxi didn't work because Sam didn't have one. "Just drop us here," Derek said, frustrated. "The system is probably still rebooting from whatever he did yesterday. We will walk up." They paid the fare with the last of the cash Monica had in her purse and stepped out. They walked up the long, winding driveway, their expensive shoes crunching on the gravel. It was a long walk, almost a quarter of a mile uphill. By the time they reached the top, they were winded and sweating. And then they stopped. There in the middle of the circular driveway, piled directly in front of the grand oak doors of the mansion, was a mountain of luggage. But it wasn't neatly packed. It was a chaotic heap. Designer suits were draped over bushes. Silk dresses were tangled in the rose garden. Shoes, Louboutins, Jimmy Choo's, Ferragamos were scattered across the pavement like confetti. It was their life evicted. "What is this?" Monica screamed, running forward. She grabbed a handful of dresses, her face twisting in horror. "My clothes! My bags! What happened?" Derek ran to the front door. He grabbed the heavy brass handle and pulled. Locked. He pounded on the wood. "Open up!" he yelled. "Open this door!" There was no answer. The house was silent. The windows were dark. The staff, the maids, the cook, the gardener were gone. I had given them all paid leave until further notice. Derek fumbled for his keys. He jammed his house key into the lock. It didn't turn. He jiggled it, twisted it, forced it. Nothing. He changed the locks, Derek whispered, staring at the brass hardware. He actually changed the locks. My jewelry, Monica shrieked, clawing at the pile of clothes. Where is my jewelry box? It is inside, Derek said, looking through the window. I can see it on the hall table. It is locked inside. Break a window, Monica yelled. Break it down. Derek looked around for a rock. He picked up a heavy garden stone and marched toward the living room window. But as he raised his arm, a loud chirping sound echoed from the eaves of the house. Warning, a robotic voice announced. You are trespassing on private property. Security forces have been notified. Please leave the premises immediately. It was the new security system I had installed remotely. I live here, Derek screamed at the camera mounted above the door. This is my house. Warning, the voice repeated. Police have been dispatched. Derek dropped the rock. He knew the police chief. He knew he was already on thin ice. If he was arrested for breaking and entering while out on bail, his bail would be revoked. He would go back to jail, and this time he would stay there until trial. We can't, Derek said, his shoulders slumping. We can't break in. They will revoke my bail. So what do we do? Monica cried, holding a ruined silk blouse to her chest. Where do we go? Derek looked at the pile of clothes. He looked at the locked mansion. He looked at the sky. Dark, heavy clouds had been gathering all morning, rolling in from the coast. A low rumble of thunder shook the ground. It is going to rain, Derek said. And then the heavens opened. It didn't start with a drizzle. It started with a deluge. A sheet of cold, hard rain slammed down onto the driveway. No, Monica screamed as the water soaked into her designer clothes. She tried to gather them up, tried to shield her handbags with her body, but it was useless. The rain was relentless. It soaked the suits. It ruined the leather. It turned the silk into wet rags. Derek stood there, letting the rain hit him. His tuxedo shirt became translucent. His hair plastered to his skull. He watched as the ink on the boxes of their possessions began to run. He watched as his expensive Italian loafers filled with water. They had no car. They had no keys. They had no credit cards. They had no friends who would take their call. They were stranded on the lawn of a mansion they used to pretend they owned, surrounded by the wet wreckage of their vanity. I watched from the dry, warm comfort of my hotel room. I watched them shivering, arguing, trying to drag soggy suitcases under the small overhang of the porch. They looked small. They looked pathetic. But I felt no pity. This rain was necessary. It was a baptism. It was washing away the illusion of their power. They thought the meeting on Monday was going to be their coronation. They thought they were walking back into the boardroom to take the crown. They had no idea that they were walking into a slaughterhouse. Let them get wet, I said to the empty room. Let them feel the cold, because Monday morning is going to be a lot colder. The camera zoomed in on Derek's face. He was shivering, his teeth chattering. He looked at the camera, seemingly staring right at me. For a second, the arrogance was gone, replaced by pure, unadulterated fear. He knew. Deep down, he finally knew. The old man wasn't playing games anymore. The old man was at war, and the war had come home. The rain came down harder, turning the dust of the driveway into a thick brown slurry. I watched through the high-definition security camera mounted above the garage as the two people who had once ruled this estate were reduced to scavengers picking through a landfill. Monica was on her knees in the mud, frantically trying to stuff a soaking wet Hermes Birkin bag under her shirt to shield it from the deluge. The bag, which cost more than most people's cars, was already ruined, the orange leather stained dark with water and dirt. "Help me!" Monica screamed at Derek, her voice barely audible over the roar of the thunder. "Don't just stand there. My Gucci coats are in that pile. They are silk, Derek. They are melting." Derek didn't move to help her. He was busy trying to salvage his own wardrobe. He was wrestling with a garment bag containing his Italian suits slipping and sliding on the wet gravel. The zipper had snagged, and in his frustration he ripped the bag open. $3,000 jackets tumbled out into a puddle of mud. Derek stared at them, his face a mask of defeat. The rain plastered his thinning hair to his skull, washing away the hair dye he used to hide the gray, revealing the aging man beneath the facade of eternal youth. They spent 20 minutes like that fighting a losing battle against the elements. Eventually, exhaustion and the biting cold forced them to give up. They abandoned the pile of ruined luxury goods, leaving thousands of dollars of fabric to rot in the mud. They needed shelter. The front door was impenetrable. The garage was locked. But Derek remembered the old gardener's sedan, a beat-up Buick, that was sometimes left parked around the side of the house for the staff to use. He ran toward the side yard, Monica stumbling behind him. I switched the camera feed to the side angle. The car was there. Derek tried the handle. Locked. He cursed, kicking the tire. He looked around, picked up a heavy brick from the landscaping border, and without hesitation, smashed the rear passenger window. The glass shattered inward. He unlocked the door and climbed in, ignoring the shards of glass on the seat. Monica scrambled in after him, shivering violently. It was a tight squeeze. The car smelled of old cigarettes and fertilizer. It was freezing cold, but at least it was dry. They sat there in the dark, their breath fogging up the windows, water dripping from their clothes onto the cracked vinyl seats. I adjusted the audio gain on the perimeter microphone nearest to the car. It picked up their voices clearly through the broken window. "This is your fault," Monica hissed, her teeth chattering. She was wringing out the hem of her dress, water pooling on the floor mat. "If you had just handled him, if you had just made sure the power of attorney was solid, we wouldn't be sleeping in a gardener's car like hobos." "My fault?" Derek laughed, a bitter, jagged sound. "You were the one who wanted the yacht, Monica. You were the one who maxed out the credit cards on spa days and jewelry. You were the one who told me to put him in the nursing home. He is just a vegetable, you said. He won't fight back, you said." "He is a vegetable," Monica screamed, hitting him on the arm. "He is. This isn't him. It's that lawyer, that witch Sarah Jenkins. She is manipulating him. She wants the money for herself." "Shut up," Derek snapped. "Just shut up. You pushed me to borrow that money for the crypto. Double it, you said. We need liquidity, you said. Now I owe $5 million to people who don't send overdue notices. They send hitmen." "You are the man," Monica spat. "You are supposed to provide. You are supposed to fix this. Look at you, shivering in a Buick. You are pathetic. My father was right about you." "Your father was a drunk," Derek retorted. "And you are a leech. You haven't worked a day in your life. You just spend what I steal." "Steal?" Monica went quiet. "Is that what you call it now?" "That is what it is," Derek said, leaning his head back against the seat and closing his eyes. "Embezzlement, fraud, theft. That is what built your closet, Monica. That is what paid for your face." They fell into a sullen silence. The only sound was the rain hammering on the roof of the car and their ragged breathing. They hated each other. I could see it in their body language, the way they recoiled from each other's touch. The money had been the glue holding them together. Now that the glue had dissolved, there was nothing left but contempt. But desperation has a way of creating strange alliances. After an hour of silence, Derek spoke up again. His voice was calmer, more calculated. "It doesn't matter," Derek said. "None of this matters. Tomorrow is Monday." "So what?" Monica asked miserably. "The meeting," Derek said. "The board meeting at 9 a.m. Dad called it for a leadership transition." "Think about it, Monica. Why would he call a meeting if he wanted to fire me? He could have just sent a letter. He could have just let security keep me out." Monica looked at him, a flicker of hope igniting in her eyes. "You think he wants to make a deal?" Derek said, convincing himself as he spoke. He is scaring us. He wanted to show us who is boss. Okay, fine. Lesson learned. He let us get wet. He let us get humiliated. But he is still my father. He built that company for me. He isn't going to destroy his own legacy just to prove a point. He bailed you out, Monica added, latching onto the fantasy. He paid the $5,000. Why would he spend money on you if he was done with you? Exactly, Derek said. He wants me back. He realized he can't run the logistics by himself. He is 70. He is tired. He wants to hand it over, but he wants me to beg a little first. He wants me to crawl. So we crawl, Monica said. We go in there tomorrow, we cry, we apologize, we tell him we learned our lesson. We sign whatever probation papers he wants. And then, Derek whispered, a dark edge returning to his voice. Once I am reinstated, once my signature is back on the accounts, we move the money. Real money. Offshore. Somewhere he can't freeze it. Yes, Monica breathed. We secure our future first. I watched them plotting in the dark, amazed by their resilience and their stupidity. They were like cockroaches planning a raid on a kitchen that had already been fumigated. They truly believed that tomorrow would be their salvation. They truly believed that I was still the soft, indulgent father who would forgive anything to keep the peace. They didn't know that the man they were going to meet tomorrow wasn't their father. He was the chairman, and he wasn't looking for an apology. He was looking for a signature on a confession. Derek sat up straight. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small burner phone. It was the only phone he had left, one he kept for his illicit dealings. What are you doing? Monica asked. I need to buy us some time, Derek said. The deadline for the loan sharks is noon tomorrow. If I don't pay, they come for me. I need to stall them until I get access to the accounts again. He dialed a number. His hand was shaking, but he forced his voice to be steady. Hello? Derek said into the phone. Yes, it's me. Tell the boss. Tell him I have the money. He paused, listening to a voice on the other end that I couldn't hear, but judging by Derek's pale face, it wasn't friendly. No, listen to me, Derek said, desperation creeping in. There was a banking error, a freeze. It gets lifted tomorrow morning. Yes, I am meeting with the board at 9. I will be reinstated as chairman. I will have full access. He swallowed hard. I will pay double, Derek said. Tell him that. Double the interest. Just give me until 2 p.m. tomorrow. I promise. You will have your money. I am taking back the company. I am going to be the king again. He hung up the phone and slumped back against the seat. He gave me until 2, Derek whispered. We can do it, Monica said, gripping his hand. We go to the meeting. We get the access. We wire the money. We survive. We survive, Derek repeated. I closed the laptop. The storm outside was raging, but the storm inside that car was just a prelude. Derek had just promised money he didn't have to men who killed for sport. He had wagered his life on the assumption that I would save him. He was digging his own grave with his mouth, and he didn't even know it. Tomorrow morning, when he walked into that boardroom, he wouldn't find a savior. He would find the executioner. Monday morning dawned gray and cold, a stark reflection of the reality Derek and Monica were about to face. They arrived at the towering glass headquarters of Caldwell Logistics at 8:45. They looked like ghosts of their former selves. Their clothes, once immaculate symbols of their status, were wrinkled and stained with mud from the night before. Derek's eyes were bloodshot, his face pale and unshaven. Monica's hair was a tangled mess, her makeup smudged her expensive dress ruined by the rain and the filth of the garden. But despite their appearance, they walked with a desperate, frantic energy. They marched past the security desk without acknowledging the guards, who watched them with a mix of pity and suspicion. They believed, truly believed, that this was their moment of redemption. They thought the disheveled look would play to their advantage, the prodigal son returning home humbled, but ready to serve. They took the stairs again, not trusting the elevators dragging themselves up 25 flights. By the time they pushed open the doors to the executive floor, they were gasping for air, sweat dripping down their faces. They headed straight for the main boardroom. The double mahogany doors were closed. Derek paused, straightened his tie, wiped the sweat from his forehead with his sleeve, and pushed the doors open with a dramatic flourish. "All right," Derek announced, stepping into the room, his voice booming with false confidence. "I am here. Let us get this over with so I can get back to work." The room fell silent. But it wasn't the silence of respect. It was the silence of a predator watching its prey walk into a trap. The long conference table was full. Every seat was taken. Derek blinked, confused. He expected to see a few board members, maybe the corporate lawyer. Instead, he saw a gathering that made his blood run cold. There were the 12 members of the board of directors, men and women, who had built their fortunes alongside mine, staring at him with stony expressions. There were representatives from the 3 major banks that held the company's credit lines, their faces grim. And standing against the back wall, arms crossed, were 4 agents wearing windbreakers with 3 letters emblazoned on the back, FBI. "What is this?" Derek stammered, his confidence evaporating like mist. "Who authorized this meeting? Why are the feds here?" He looked around wildly. "Where is my father? Where is the chairman?" Arthur Banks, the CFO who had evicted Derek from his office 2 days prior, stood up at the end of the table. "Please take a seat, Mr. Caldwell," Arthur said, pointing to 2 lone chairs placed in the center of the room, isolated from the main table like seats for the accused in a courtroom. "I will not sit there," Derek shouted, trying to regain control. "I sit at the head of the table. I am the CEO who authorized this circus." "I did," a voice said from the private entrance at the front of the room. The heavy door swung open. I stepped out. I was not wearing the flannel shirt of a retiree. I was not hunched over a cane. I wore a charcoal gray 3-piece suit that fit me like armor. My hair was groomed, my face clean-shaven. I walked with the stride of a man who had built this building from the ground up. I did not look at Derek. I walked straight to the head of the table, the seat that had been empty for 5 years. I sat down. The leather creaked in the silence. I placed a single file folder on the table in front of me. Then slowly I looked up and locked eyes with my son. Derek took a step back as if he had been physically struck. He looked at me, then at the photo of the founder on the wall, then back at me. For 5 years he had seen only a frail old man. Now he saw the titan he had forgotten. "Dad," Derek whispered, his voice trembling. You look different," I finished for him. "Yes. It is amazing what a good night's sleep and a lack of betrayal can do for a man's complexion." Monica grabbed Derek's arm, her nails digging into his suit jacket. She was staring at the FBI agents, her face white as a sheet. "Sit down," I ordered. My voice was not loud, but it carried the weight of absolute authority. Derek and Monica stumbled to the 2 chairs in the center of the room and sat. They looked small. They looked terrified. "I don't understand," Derek said, his voice cracking. "The email, it said leadership transition. You thought I was going to give it back to you," I said. "You thought I was going to pat you on the head, tell you it was all a misunderstanding, and hand you the keys to the kingdom again." I learned my lesson," Derek stammered, trying to pivot to the apology script he had rehearsed in the car. "Dad, I am sorry. About the birthday. About the dog food. It was a joke, a bad joke. I was stressed. The market, the pressure." "Save it," I said, cutting him off with a wave of my hand. "We are not here to discuss your sense of humor. We are here to discuss your crimes." "Crimes?" Derek squeaked. I looked at Sarah Jenkins, who was sitting to my right. She nodded and opened a laptop connected to the room's main screen. "This meeting is now called to order," I announced to the room. The agenda is simple. Item 1. The immediate termination of Derek Caldwell from all positions within Caldwell Logistics. Item 2. The presentation of evidence regarding embezzlement fraud and elder abuse. Item 3. The extermination of parasites. Extermination, Monica gasped. Figuratively speaking, of course, I said, offering her a cold smile. Although looking at what you have done to my company and my life, the literal definition is tempting. I leaned forward, placing my hands on the table. You wanted to be the boss, Derek, I said. You wanted the power. You wanted the respect. Well, here it is. The board is listening. The banks are listening. The federal government is listening. Tell them. Tell them about the crypto exchange. Tell them about the loans. Tell them about the $5 million you stole from the employee pension fund. Derek froze. The mention of the pension fund hit the room like a boom. The board members gasped. The FBI agents took out notepads. I didn't... Derek started, sweats pouring down his face. I was going to put it back. It was a temporary loan I was investing. You were gambling, I corrected him. And you lost. And now you are going to pay the tab. I opened the file folder in front of me. Gentlemen, I said to the FBI agents, the floor is yours. But before you take him away, I have a few home movies I would like to show the class. I signaled Sarah. The giant screen behind me flickered to life. The show is just beginning, I said. And Derek, I suggest you watch closely. Because this is the last time you will see your name on anything other than a prison roster. I pressed the button on the sleek remote control lying on the table. The lights in the boardroom dimmed automatically, and the massive screen behind me flickered to life. The hum of the projector was the only sound in the room, a low drone that signaled the beginning of the end for the two people sitting in the center of the room. Exhibit A, I said calmly. The character of the man who wants to lead this company. The video started. It was footage from the security cameras at the estate, high definition and crystal clear with audio. It showed the dining room from 2 nights ago. The guests in their finery. Derek standing at the head of the table holding the silver bowl. The room watched in horrified silence as my son placed the bowl in front of me. They heard his voice amplified by the boardroom's sound system booming with arrogant cruelty. This is what freeloaders eat, old man. They saw the wet brown mound of dog food. They saw the smirk on Derek's face. They heard Monica's shrill, delighting laughter. A collective gasp rippled through the board members. Mrs. Higgins, a woman who had served on the board for 15 years and founded several animal shelters, covered her mouth with her hand. Oh, good Lord, she whispered, her voice trembling with disgust. That is monstrous. Derek shrank in his chair. He tried to look away from the screen, but he couldn't. He was forced to watch his own cruelty replay in front of the people whose respect he craved most. The video ended with me walking out the door, dignity intact, leaving a room full of sycophants. That was the man who claims to have the moral authority to manage your investments, I said to the bankers. A man who feeds his father dog food for sport. It was a joke, Derek cried out, sweat flying from his forehead. It was just a prank. We were having fun. Fun, Arthur Banks, the CFO, shot back. You call that fun? You are sick, Derek. But wait, I said, raising a hand. There is more. You see, Derek, while you were busy planning my demise, you forgot to look at the person sleeping next to you. You forgot that loyalty is a currency you never possessed, and therefore you never attracted it. I clicked the remote again. Exhibit B. The screen changed. This time it was footage from inside the main house taken from the security camera in the master bedroom. It was dated 3 weeks ago. Derek was not in the room. Monica was sitting on the edge of the bed, talking on her cell phone. Her voice was hushed, intimate, the tone of a woman speaking to a lover. I know, baby, Monica purred into the phone. I miss you too, but we have to be patient. The old man is still kicking, but he is weak. Derek is pushing him hard. Once the old man is gone and we liquidate the estate, I will have my share. I will leave him Jason, I promise. I will take the insurance payout and the settlement and we can go to Cabo. The room went dead silent. Derek slowly turned his head to look at his wife. His face was a mask of pure shock. Jason, Derek whispered. Jason Miller, the private investigator. You are sleeping with the muscle. Monica turned white. She opened her mouth to speak to deny it, but the recording continued. Derek is an idiot, Monica's voice on the screen said, laughing. He thinks he is a genius businessman, but he is just a gambler. He will crash and burn eventually. I am just waiting for the payout. As soon as Harrison kicks the bucket, I am cashing out. I paused the video. The image of Monica's laughing face froze on the screen, looming over the real Monica, who was now trembling so violently her chair rattled against the floor. So, I said, looking at Derek, you were going to sell my house to pay your debts, and she was going to take the rest and run off with a hired thug, a perfect match. Derek looked at Monica with hatred. You traitor, he hissed. You told me you loved me. You told me we were partners. You are broke, Monica screamed back, abandoning all pretense. You are a loser, Derek. You lost $5 million. Of course I was going to leave you. Order, I shouted, slamming my hand on the table. This is a boardroom, not a reality show. We are done with the personal failures. Now let us talk about the professional ones. I nodded to Sarah Jenkins. She stood up and connected her laptop to the system. The screen changed again, displaying a complex web of spreadsheets, bank transfers, and blockchain transaction logs. Ladies and gentlemen of the board, Sarah began, her voice crisp and professional. What you are looking at is a forensic audit of the company's discretionary fund and the employee pension reserve over the last 6 months. She pointed to a series of red lines. Starting in January, Derek Caldwell began siphoning funds from the operational accounts into a shell company called DC Ventures. From there, the money was moved into an offshore crypto exchange based in the Cayman Islands. The total amount transferred was $5,200,000. The bankers leaned forward, their eyes narrowing. This was the smoking gun. This was the crime. And here, Sarah continued, highlighting a graph that plummeted straight down, is the performance of that investment. The exchange he used was a Ponzi scheme. It collapsed 48 hours ago. The balance is zero. The money is gone, stolen, vaporized. Sarah closed the laptop. The silence in the room was heavy, the kind of silence that precedes a sentencing. He stole from the pension fund. A board member whispered, his face gray. He stole from the drivers, from the mechanics, from the people who built this company. I was going to pay it back, Derek sobbed, burying his face in his hands. I just needed a win. I just needed one big win to prove I was better than him. He pointed a shaking finger at me. He always made me feel small. I wanted to be big. You are small, Derek, I said softly. Not because of your bank account, but because of your choices. I turned to the 3 representatives from the bank. They were huddled together, whispering furiously. After a moment, the lead representative, a stern man named Mr. Henderson, stood up. He adjusted his glasses and looked at Derek with the cold detachment of a man who was about to foreclose on a life. Mr. Caldwell, Mr. Henderson said, the bank has reviewed the evidence presented by the chairman. The embezzlement of company funds constitutes a material breach of the fiduciary covenants in our lending agreements. He paused, letting the legal weight of his words sink in. Furthermore, Mr. Henderson continued, when you took out the personal line of credit to cover your initial losses last year, you signed a bad boy guarantee. This clause states that any act of fraud, theft, or moral turpitude allows the bank to bypass the corporate veil and pursue your personal assets for immediate repayment. Derek looked up, confusion mixing with terror. What does that mean? It means, Mr. Henderson said, closing his folder, that we are activating the personal debt recovery clause effective immediately. The bank is calling in all loans. We are seizing your personal accounts, your remaining assets, and any future earnings until the debt of $5 million is repaid in full. You do not just have zero, Mr. Caldwell. You are now negative $5 million. You can't do that, Monica shrieked. We are married. That debt is his, not mine. Actually, Mrs. Caldwell, Sarah Jenkins interjected with a thin smile. Since you are listed as a co-signatory on the shell company DC Ventures to hide the funds from the IRS, you are jointly and severally liable. You owe the bank $5 million too. The air left the room. Monica slumped back, her eyes rolling up in her head as if she might faint. Derek stared at the table, his life dissolving into numbers he could not pay. The evidence is clear, I said, standing up. The verdict is in. Now it is time for the sentencing. Derek slid out of his chair and fell to his knees on the plush carpet of the boardroom. The arrogant CEO who had mocked me 3 days ago was gone. In his place was a broken man sobbing, his hands clasped together in a pathetic gesture of prayer. He crawled toward the head of the table, reaching for the hem of my suit jacket, but he stopped short when he saw the look in my eyes. It was not anger. It was indifference. Dad, please. Derek choked out, tears streaming down his face, mixing with the sweat and grime. I will do anything. I will go to rehab. I will work in the warehouse. Just do not let them take me. Do not let me go to prison. I cannot survive in there. They will eat me alive. I looked down at him. He was right. He wouldn't last a week. He was soft. He had lived his entire life on the cushion of my hard work. I didn't know, Monica screamed, jumping up from her chair and pointing an accusatory finger at her husband. I swear, Harrison. He lied to me. He told me the crypto was a sure thing. He told me the money was his bonus. I am a victim here. You cannot punish me for his crimes. A victim? Sarah Jenkins asked, arching an eyebrow. Mrs. Caldwell, we have you on video conspiring to defraud the estate. We have your signature on the shell company documents. You are not a victim. You are the getaway driver. No, Monica shrieked, backing away. I want a lawyer. I want a divorce. Silence, I commanded. The word cracked through the room like a whip. Monica clamped her mouth shut. Derek continued to weep softly into the carpet. I reached into my briefcase and pulled out 2 thick manila folders. I placed them on the table with a heavy thud. One was labeled Department of Justice. The other was labeled Termination of Rights. Get up, Derek, I said coldly. Sit in your chair and listen to me very carefully, because I am only going to say this once. Derek scrambled back into his seat, wiping his nose with his sleeve. He looked at the folders with terrified eyes. You have 2 choices, I said, placing my hand on the first folder. Option A. I hand this file to the gentleman standing at the back of the room. It contains the full forensic audit, the wire transfer logs, and your confession on tape. You will be arrested immediately. You will be charged with grand larceny, wire fraud, and embezzlement. Given the amount stolen, you are looking at 15 to 20 years in federal prison. No bail, no parole for at least 12 years. Derek let out a small, high-pitched whimper. Option B. I continued, sliding the second folder toward him. You sign this. It is a comprehensive settlement agreement. By signing, you admit to the debt of $5 million as a personal liability. You agree to wage garnishment for the rest of your life until every cent is repaid. But more importantly, you sign a voluntary termination of all inheritance rights. You sign away your claim to the trust. You sign away your claim to the name Caldwell. You leave this building with nothing but the clothes on your back. In exchange, I will decline to press criminal charges. The FBI will walk away. You will be broke, you will be in debt, but you will be free. I leaned forward, my face inches from his. Prison or poverty, Derek, I whispered. Choose. The room was silent. The air conditioning hummed. The FBI agents shifted their weight handcuffs ready on their belts. Derek looked at the agents. He looked at the folder. He looked at Monica, but she turned her face away, refusing to meet his eyes. He was alone. His hand shook violently as he reached for the pen Sarah offered him. He didn't read the document. He didn't try to negotiate. He knew I wasn't bluffing. He opened the folder to the signature page. "I am sorry, Dad," he whispered, the ink staining the page as he signed his life away. "I am so sorry." "Do not call me Dad," I said, taking the folder back and handing it to Sarah. "You fired your father yesterday. You are speaking to your creditor." Sarah checked the signature and nodded. "It is done." I looked at the FBI agents. "Gentlemen, the company declines to press charges at this time. We will handle this internally as a civil matter." The lead agent nodded, looking almost disappointed, but he respected the play. "Understood, Mr. Caldwell. But if he misses a single debt payment, call us." "I will," I promised. Derek slumped in his chair, a man hollowed out. He had avoided prison, but he had lost everything else. The future he had felt entitled to was gone. Monica stood up slowly. Her eyes darted around the room, calculating her next move. She realized the ship had sunk and she was already looking for a life raft. "Well," Monica said, her voice trembling but trying for dignity, "if you are done destroying him, I am leaving. I need to call my divorce lawyer. I am not staying married to a pauper with $5 million in debt." She turned and started walking toward the door, her heels clicking on the hardwood. She clutched her designer purse tightly, her knuckles white. "Stop," I said. Monica froze. She didn't turn around. "Where do you think you are going?" I asked. "I am leaving," Monica said over her shoulder. "I am not an employee here. You can't fire me." "No," I said, standing up and walking around the table. "But I can audit you." I stopped between her and the door. I looked her up and down. "That purse," I said, pointing to the Louis Vuitton bag she was clutching. "Corporate card expense, March 12th, $2,000. Monica pulled the bag closer. "It is a gift. It is stolen property," I corrected her. "And the diamond earrings. Corporate expense, February 14th, $5,000. And the watch. And the tennis bracelet." "You can't be serious," Monica gasped, clutching her ears. "I am deadly serious," I said. "You and Derek spent company money like it was water. Now the well is dry. Everything you are wearing, everything you are holding was purchased with funds stolen from my employees' pension fund. I want it back. All of it." You want me to take off my jewelry?" Monica stammered, looking at the board members who were watching with grim satisfaction. "Here in front of everyone. Right now," I said, holding out my hand. "Or I call the officers back in. Possession of stolen goods is a felony, Monica. Do you want to join Derek in the debt pool, or do you want to go to a cell?" Monica looked at the door. It was blocked by security. She looked at me. My hand was steady. She looked at Derek, who was too broken to even look up. With shaking hands, she unclasped the diamond earrings and dropped them into my palm. Then the bracelet. Then the watch. She unzipped the purse and dumped the contents onto the side table, makeup, phone keys, and handed me the empty leather bag. "The ring," I said, pointing to the massive diamond on her finger. "Derek bought that upgrade last year. Company funds." "It is my wedding ring," she screamed, tears of rage and humiliation streaming down her face. "It is evidence," I said. "Give it to me." She yanked the ring off her finger and threw it at me. I caught it out of the air. "And the car keys, Mum?" I added. "The car is gone," she yelled. "They repossessed it. Not the Mercedes," I said. "The keys to the Range Rover Derek bought for your mother. We are taking that back too." She fished the keys out of the pile on the table and slammed them into my hand. She stood there, stripped of her armor, stripped of her status. She was just a greedy woman in a dirty dress. "Can I go now?" she hissed. "One more thing, sir," I said. You walked in here thinking you were royalty. You leave as a trespasser. You have 5 minutes to get off the property before I have you arrested for loitering. And Monica, it is a long walk to the bus stop. She let out a scream of pure frustration and ran out the door. We could hear her sobbing echoing down the hallway. I turned back to the room. I dropped the jewelry into the silver bowl, the dog food bowl which I had placed on the center of the table. It made a hollow clattering sound. "Meeting adjourned," I said. Derek and Monica did not make it out of the building with any dignity intact. The security cameras in the lobby captured the final disintegration of their marriage in high definition. As they stepped out of the elevator, stripped of their titles, their assets, and their future, the shock wore off and the rage set in. Monica swung her empty handbag at Derek, hitting him squarely in the chest. She screamed that he was a failure, a loser who had dragged her into the gutter. She shouted that she should have left him years ago for a man with real money. Derek pushed past his breaking point, shoved her back. He yelled that she was a parasite who had bled him dry. They screamed at each other in the middle of the polished marble floor, two people who had once thought they owned the world, now fighting like stray cats over scraps. Security did not intervene. They simply watched as Monica stormed out the revolving doors, heading toward the subway station she had never used in her life, vowing to call her divorce lawyer the moment she found a quarter. She disappeared into the city, bitter and broken, destined to spend the rest of her life looking for another host to leech off of. Derek stood alone in the lobby for a moment. He looked at the exit. He looked at the busy street outside. He knew that somewhere out there men in dark cars were looking for him. He knew that the clock on his debt had run out. He pulled his collar up, hunched his shoulders, and walked out into the cold afternoon. He did not go to a hotel. He did not go to a friend's house. He walked into the shadows of the city, becoming one of the nameless faces he used to sneer at from his limousine window. He was a ghost now, running from his shadow, living in fear of every footstep behind him. I never saw my son again. I heard rumors, of course. A sighting at a shelter downtown. A whisper about a man fitting his description, washing dishes in a diner 2 states over. I did not investigate. I did not intervene. He had made his bed, and now he had to sleep in it, wherever that might be. 2 weeks later, the for sale sign went up in front of the Greenwich estate. I did not step foot inside the mansion again. I sold it fully furnished. I sold the art on the walls, the rugs on the floors, and the wine in the cellar. I wanted none of it. That house was a mausoleum of bad memories and false promises. The sale brought in $12 million. I added that to the dividends from the textile shares and the recovered assets from the embezzlement seizure. It was a fortune, and I knew exactly what to do with it. I bought a large plot of land on the outskirts of the city, a place with rolling hills and old oak trees. I hired the best architects not to build a monument to my ego, but to build a sanctuary. 6 months later, the ribbon was cut on the Caldwell Center for Veterans and Seniors. It was not a depressing facility with fluorescent lights and linoleum floors. It was a home. It had individual cottages, community gardens, a library, and a top-tier medical wing. It was a place where people who had served their country or raised families could live out their days with the dignity they deserved, regardless of their bank account. I moved into one of the cottages myself. I did not want a penthouse. I wanted a community. Tonight, the dining hall of the center is filled with laughter and the clinking of silverware. I am sitting at a long wooden table surrounded by friends. There is Execute Bill, a Vietnam vet, who plays a mean game of chess. There is Martha, a retired school teacher, who knits scarves for everyone in the winter. We are eating roast chicken and mashed potatoes, simple food that tastes better than any steak I ever ate at the Ritz. Sarah Jenkins walks into the dining hall. She is smiling, holding a leash in her hand. At the end of the leash is a dog. He is a scruffy thing, a mix of terrier and something else with matted fur and one ear that flops over his eye. He was found wandering the construction site, hungry and alone. "He needs a home, Harrison," Sarah says, scratching the dog behind the ears. "I thought maybe you had room." I look at the dog. He looks back at me, his tail wagging tentatively. He is unsure. He is waiting to see if he will be chased away. "I have room," I say. I reach under the table and pull out a bag I brought with me. From inside I produce a silver bowl. It is the same bowl. I had kept it. I had polished it every week, a reminder of where I had been. I open a can of premium dog food, the good kind with real beef and vegetables. I pour it into the silver bowl. The smell is savory and rich. I place the silver bowl on the floor in front of the dog. He sniffs it, then looks up at me as if asking for permission. I nod. He dives in, eating with the joy of a creature who knows he is finally safe. My son was right about one thing. This bowl is for a loyal animal. And this dog, this stray who is grateful for a warm meal and a kind hand, deserves to eat from silver 1,000 times more than my son ever did. The dog finishes and licks my hand. I smile, petting his rough head. The screen fades to black, leaving only the sound of a happy bark. This story teaches us that true wealth is not determined by the balance in your bank account, but by the integrity of your character. You can wear the most expensive suits and live in the biggest mansions, but if you treat people with cruelty and arrogance, you are spiritually bankrupt. Loyalty, kindness, and respect are the only currencies that matter in the end. When you strip away the money and the titles, all you have left is who you are as a person. Build a life you can be proud of so that when the rain comes, you have a shelter built on love, not a fortress built on greed. If you enjoyed this story, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more stories about justice and redemption. Let me know in the comments what you would have done if you were in Harrison's shoes. Would you have forgiven Derek, or did he get exactly what he deserved? I read every comment and I want to hear your thoughts. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.